Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Let's see, that's not right. Let's see if this one goes forward. Yes, it does. Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Steve Crumb. I'm the representative from AUTOSAR in North America, running the hub as a spokesperson there. I have a great opportunity. Martin showed earlier on the slides that the number of organizations in the U.S. and North America needs to grow a little higher over time, and we're going to try to make that happen. Thank you for that pep talk this morning, or a little bit ago on that, and so we'll try to make that happen. But really glad to be here. I have the unique opportunity to wear multiple hats in the automotive industry, one as the AUTOSAR spokesperson, but also the executive director of COVISA, and so I have a unique opportunity working with Michael and others at AUTOSAR to work on their opening strategy and the automotive API and that sort of thing. I'm going to do a little bit differently from what Jingji did. Wonderful presentation. The China Hub is doing so much good work there. I'm not going to talk so much about our structure, but more about some of the things that we've been doing behind the scenes. And so I'll give a little bit of an introduction as to why we're doing what we're doing, and then talk a little bit more about North America trends. What are the people in North America thinking around software-defined vehicle, around automotive software? And so this is going to be more of a presentation that hopefully brings some of the vision and some of the thoughts happening in the automotive industry in North America to this audience. So we'll go with that. So as was already mentioned, the regional hubs were established a couple of years ago. And this year we had the unique opportunity to set and receive key performance indicators from the AUTOSAR organization, which gave us tremendous structure and goals to shoot for the year. And one of those key performance indicators, which I'm going to spend a little bit of time on today, is what are the market trends in North America? What are people thinking? What are organizations thinking around trends that inform current and future AUTOSAR standardization efforts, hub efforts, and all the other efforts that the organization needs to be truly a global organization? And so what we've been doing in the hub, in addition to going to events and having user groups and all the things that, many of the things that Jingji talked about, is we have been talking to some individual organizations. And so we're going to talk a little bit about North America trends, at least from a couple of different perspectives. The first perspective is events. There are many, many events in North America. And as you might expect, some of those have to do with software-defined vehicle. Some of those have to do with various other activities. But what we did as a way to analyze North America trends was we took 5 different events. We looked at the program content of those 5 different events, and then we looked for overlaps in the topics that were being discussed at those 5 events. And so the events here, if you're not familiar with them, the Consumer Electronics Show is a very large consumer electronics activity in Las Vegas in early January. And it's got a very, very broad program and a very limited program on automotive. If we look at the topics that were being discussed there, last week AUTOSAR was at the AutoTech Detroit event. We looked at the program there. SAE World Congress had an expansive program. We looked at that program. AutoSense, and then the COVISA all-member meeting, even though that was in Gothenburg, it was largely built, the program was largely built by North America individuals, and so we considered that sort of a North America way of thinking. And interestingly, the 4 key overlaps of those programs were vehicle experience. In other words, what is the consumer, what is the driver and the vehicle occupant, what new things can they experience in the vehicle that they couldn't before? The As vehicles become more and more connected, new kinds of content is available there. New kinds of things can happen there, gaming and all kinds of other things. And so vehicle experience seemed to be one of the 4 areas that were being talked about a lot. By the way, these are not ranked in order. They were just the 4 that I found in our research. Vehicle data is being talked a lot about. There's always been vehicle data, and yet there hasn't been a good exchange protocol, a good way of defining vehicle data in a common way. And so that's being talked about a lot. It's also oftentimes being combined with artificial intelligence, although AI stands alone as well. Functional safety, which is good news for AUTOSAR, is being talked about a lot in these various programs. And then, of course, electrification is also a very high topic that's being expressed in a number of different programs across these events. And so these are 4 key areas that at least North America programs are considering. We're going to continue to keep an eye on other programs of other events that are being launched through the second half of the year. And so this list may change slightly, but we will report that back. And again, this is a helpful view to understand the North American trends. The second way we looked at the trends that North American organizations are considering is actually have interviews with 3 analyst organizations, or 3 organizations that produce useful content for automotive companies. So in particular, we talked to SDV Automotive, we talked to Ward's Automotive, and also the Tech Insights and Aurora Labs report. And we found a number of different areas that are being discussed there. Not surprisingly, cryptographic agility, open source software, platform monetization, all sorts of things, digital twins, thermal cameras, driver monitoring systems, continuous quality assurance, the expansion of in-vehicle infotainment, and a further stronghold of Android and CarPlay into the vehicle data space. But in spite of all these things being talked about across all of these different analysts, there were some overlaps, which are the ones that are in red here on this chart that I think are quite interesting. So cloud-based development was something that was being talked about quite extensively between 2 organizations. ECU insourcing, which isn't obvious what that means, and so I provided the definition down there below around bringing OEMs bringing intellectual property from suppliers, previously from suppliers, to doing it in-house, and seeking to consolidate ECUs on central and zonal architectures. And so that was a topic that was being discussed in a couple of different reports and amongst a couple of different analyst organizations. Software and feature lifecycle, SDV. Couldn't have this chart without SDV appearing on it somewhere, and of course it does. But the lifecycle question is a big one because OEMs are more and more dealing with the topic of how do you keep their vehicles on the road for that 10, 15, 20-year life cycle. How do you keep those vehicles safe? How do you keep them updated? How do you keep the owners satisfied with new features and new services? And so this whole notion of a feature life cycle for an extended period of time is something that's really being talked about a lot amongst organizations. And then finally, generative AI, artificial intelligence, no surprise that that's being discussed by quite a few organizations as well. So these are a couple of different ways of looking at what North America topics or trends should AUTOSAR be considering in their future plans and so forth. So as I was invited to give this talk, I was given a set of questions to consider answering during this particular session. And so I'm going to go through those very quickly. Kind of took it a little bit literally, but I think it's helpful content for you all to understand as well. So these were the questions that were suggested that I addressed during the rest of my session here. And so I'll do these quickly. What's the regional view to SDV and the related technology approach? There's a lot of things happening in the North American market around SDV. And first of all, as is true in every part of the world, is it hype or is it real? And if it is real, what is it? And this is, we'll hear later on today from Michael Nicholas-Forad about the SDV Alliance, and this is one of the goals that that alliance has, to come up with a definition that makes sense and is agreeable across the industry. But what is it? It needs to be defined before we can actually begin to solve it. The other thing that I hear loudly from North America stakeholders is that SDV is not a local problem. It is a global opportunity. So it's something that has to be addressed in North America, in Europe, in various geographies in Asia. It has to be a global opportunity. We all, I think, agree that no one organization, as strong as AUTOSAR is, as strong as other organizations are, JASPAR and so forth, it's not one organization's capability, it's beyond one organization's capability to solve it. And then finally, we'll take multiple tools. This was an interesting conversation I had with a couple of OEMs that said, look, we love open source software, but it's not the answer for everything. We need a toolkit to solve SDV. And that toolkit will involve open standards, open solutions, open source software, but it must also have standards to work from, and it must also have proprietary solutions available to the OEMs to build their products. And so when I think about what I'm hearing in the North America space, it really comes down to 3 A's. Abstraction, which we've already talked about a little bit today in the AUTOSAR presentation earlier. Alignment, meaning aligning across multiple organizations. No one organization is going to solve the SDV challenge. And then finally, APIs, which is related to the interface first, or the API first concept that was talked about previously as a challenge to AUTOSAR. And so those are the three APIs, and of course with APIs need to get to something. And of course data is part of what, vehicle data is part of what APIs should exploit. And so this is one view of what the North America region is looking at in terms of SDV. One of the key issues that North America is trying to address, things that are maybe challenges in the North American market. Well, first of all, this shift of working model where OEMs are insourcing more and more of their software, the typical historical OEM Tier 1 relationship, it's still there, it's still active, but it's changed. And OEMs are taking more control of doing some of the work. They want to do some of it in the open, but frankly, they want to do some of it behind the firewall. And then there's some who want to do it in a hybrid way. They want to do some of it open and some of it behind the firewall and bring those two things together, which is a very big challenge. Another issue is regional regulations and geography-based initiatives. We'll hear later on about the Federate project in the European Commission, which is a great project to define some of the things going on in the future of SDV. But as we know, the regulations in one part of the world may be completely different than those in another part of the world, and yet others in another part of the world. And so regional regulations and initiatives that are happening in various regions of the world may become an issue to work through before we get to a solid SDV future. And then finally, I would be remiss if I didn't say that geopolitical influences are also an issue with North America. North America has a very interesting political landscape right now. If you read CNN and other magazines and newspapers, it's a very interesting market right now. But at the end of the day, some of the relationships between the United States, Canada, Mexico, and other parts of the world does have an effect on this notion of being able to solve things globally. And so that's why I put that in there. It is an issue that needs to be worked through. Is there a collaboration with AUTOSAR established in the region? And of course, yes, the answer is yes. We have the North America Hub, and we are there to strengthen AUTOSAR adoption as well as to expand contribution, and we're working to establish a better pipeline of needs and gaps and opportunities from the adopters in North America back to the decision makers in AUTOSAR centrally. And so this is something that we're trying to do as a North America hub. But again, OEM insourcing has influenced the collaboration landscape. This notion that OEMs are beginning to take more control of the automotive software that goes into their vehicle is something we have to work through. We have to respond to and work into our way of collaborating in North America. And then, of course, there's still a very strong pull in North America for open collaboration and open source software. Many of these regional activities, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in North America, or other parts of the world, they don't suggest, they require open source approaches, open source software that can be used publicly and used broadly. And so this is an important pull as well. And then finally, the last question is about harmonization. What is the harmonization opportunity? And I think this is where a different way of thinking is required. We have to begin to think about solutions that integrate easily. We've always wanted to have solutions that integrate easily, but that's not always been the case. And I can understand that because of commercial reasons, organizations have to make money, and they have to do things their way, and they have to show why their product and service is better than the next person's product and service. But I think North America stakeholders are thinking more and more that in order to solve SDV, we need to work better together. We need to even get ahead of how we're planning and how we're developing and designing our products and services so that when they get done, they are easily integratable with others. Another thought that has been evident in North America has been this notion that as we stand today, we do not know the automotive use cases that might be taking effect in 10, 12, 15 years. And yet, the vehicles that roll off the assembly line right now must be able to accomplish those use cases, whatever they may be. And so there must be a flexible architecture. There must be a flexible way that facilitates the future use cases that we can't even dream of today. And so that's another thing that we have to work on. Sharing intellectual property, it's a challenge. It really is. It's a challenge globally. It's a challenge within North America. Some organizations are very patent rich and they do not want to engage in open source communities. Others can't imagine doing anything but an open source approach. And so how do we bridge the gap between those organizations? And we have to figure out a way to share intellectual property in a safe way, in a commercially viable way, but also in a way that enables harmonization across organizations working on SDV. And then finally, and this is a mantra that I think you've probably all heard before, but the automotive industry thinks it's special, and that everything has to be designed and created in the automotive industry or else it doesn't work for automotive. And the simple fact of the matter is that there's lots and lots of technology out in the banking industry, in the manufacturing industry, and in many other industries that we, as the automotive industry, can take advantage of. And we can adopt and adapt for automotive uses. I've got several examples of this, but this is a growing trend amongst North American users and adopters and stakeholders that we have to learn from other industries and rapidly adapt those technologies into the automotive world. So that's the 4 questions I wanted to run through very quickly in addition to sort of the North America trends. I hope that was helpful. I was trying to bring the mindset of North America stakeholders to Tokyo, and I hope I was accomplished that well today. So thank you very much.